Big news! Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello everyone and welcome to Haway The Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for this week's Q&A episode. We are here once again to answer all of your questions, and as per usual, we've been absolutely battered over on Twitter, so thank you very much to everybody who sent in questions. We've got lots and lots to get through today, so I'm going to get cracking. First off, I'm joined from the other side of the world by Martin Wanless. Hello, mate.
Hello, mates. Yes, other side of the world, but very close in my heart and in my head. So that's all that matters, isn't it?
Well, how nice for a Monday morning. Sorry, a Tuesday morning as this goes out. Also with us is Andrew Smithson. Hello, mate.
Hello, morning, Gav. That was beautiful from Martin, wasn't it?
Poetic,
Lovely start to the episode.
Are you fully recovered from the weekend, Andrew? I'm presuming you enjoyed it as much as the rest of us.
I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a brilliant day, wasn't it? There was the whole event around the crossing opening as well, which added a nice little side to it. I think I am recovered, although my voice might not agree. I might still be coming through a little bit croaky.
Yeah, like I said, we've had a ton of questions. It's always the case when we win. People are just bouncing on and they want to hear more and more about the game. But quite a lot of today's questions are about what we do next weekend. Obviously, people are looking forward to the next game against Chelsea, so lots to crack on with there. I think we're going to start with Nordi Mukiele, Martin. We've had a few about him. Obviously, the star of the show at the weekend scored a goal, and then the most aesthetically pleasing celebration that I've seen in a long time with that knee slide across the turf and then point to the fans. It was a moment I've been looking forward to. I said, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, I felt that these defenders are going to get lots of goals this season. I didn't expect Nordi to pop up in the left wing position to be cutting in and putting it through the legs of the goalkeeper maybe, but it shows how great he is. And the first question which we've got is from Ben Cluj over on X. And he says, have you seen that Nordi Mukiele is third on the FootMob top players in the Premier League this season, behind only Haaland and Semenyo? Now that had escaped us. I don't know what the relevance of FootMob's ratings are, but I'm just going to assume it means he's mint, and it backs up our claims that he's mint, Martin. But Nordi Mukiele, just some words on him, I guess. It's been some signing, hasn't he?
He's been a fantastic signing, and I think it's going to be really interesting how he is using the team longer term. He signed a 4-year contract when we got him, so he's here for the long term. And we paid, 9.5 million and 2.5 in add-ons, or around.
Crackers, isn't it?
It's absolutely mental in terms of some of the other transfer fees that have been splashed out.
Well, we did have another one from John Ridley who said, in a world of computer science, scouts and data technology, how have we got Nordi Mukiele for 10 million quid? I mean, everyone's saying it.
And he's got a bit of everything, hasn't he? He's strong, he's fast, he's good in the tackle, he's a brilliant footballer. Actually, on the ball, he's a superb footballer. He reads the game really well. He can score goals, as we've seen, but he plays with a smile on his face as well. He wants to be at the club. You can tell he's really embraced everything that's going on. And, he was one of the signings that arrived pretty late on, didn't he? It was kind of, mid-August or so or mid to late August when he came in. It wasn't deadline day, but it was a week or two beforehand. And I think I think he's going to end up being our regular right back. I think that's where he'll end up being played. He came into the team out of necessity after Ballard got injured, didn't he, at Burnley? And obviously Jensen Silt was in and out, and Alderete came in. But him and Alderete have formed a great partnership. But I thought on Saturday, and we've seen it a couple of times when he's got the right wing back, he looks even better playing out wide of defence. So I think he's fantastic. And, it's testament to where the club's at right now and how the club's perceived that we've got a player like him. Now, I don't think we get him if we don't get Granit Xhaka. That's one of those signings where you're looking at it. He was on loan at Leverkusen last season. He had a relationship with Xhaka. And I just think that's one of those that if that first domino doesn't fall, this one doesn't. So I think it just speaks volumes about where we're at as a club, that we've been able to get somebody like him. And even, the FootMob ratings is one thing if you want to pay much attention to that. But I was looking at some other stats as well, where, in terms of headers won, I think, and clearances made, and, your regular defensive stats, he's right up there as well in terms of how he's perceived against other Premier League defenders too. So, look, brilliant player, and let's enjoy him while he's here, because he's certainly making a massive impact, isn't he?
He is indeed. And we've had another question, Andrew, from Steve Bowens over on X, who says, and this is just to touch on something Martin mentioned there, does Hume get his place back at right back after that performance by Mukiele? As much as I love Hume, Mukiele was next level. It is an interesting pose at that, and I said it through the week that I felt that would be the back four, because you can sort of see Mukiele being more of a attacking threat down that side than maybe Hume is, but also there's this desire to get Ballard on the pitch, and every time he's played this season, he's been brilliant. He was brilliant again on Saturday, Ballard, and that's certainly no slight on Trai Hume, is it? But as Steve says, Mukiele was just so good. So, what do you see coming up? I mean, we'll get on to Chelsea in a bit, but what do you see in terms of that makeup of the defence? Do you agree with Martin that when Reinildo's back, that might be the preferred back four?
I'm not sure about that, about Reinildo, particularly in some games. I think Hume might keep his place. However, at left back, I don't think there's any arguments now to say that Mukiele doesn't deserve a stretch playing over on the other side. For a long time when we've been speaking, lads, I've really been keen to keep Hume at right back, but the evidence on Saturday against Wolves, it's going to be really hard not to let Mukiele play there. I mean, he's probably even better there than he was at centre back, and by pushing him out wide, you are giving yourself the opportunity to bring Dan Ballard in, who's done really well. Just a thing on Mukiele there and his attacking capabilities. If I remember rightly, that goal came from open play, didn't it? He wasn't up there for a set piece, I don't think.
I think he took a throw-in.
Right.
I think he'd taken the throw-in.
I suppose technically it is open play, but he had,
but that's why he was over there.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's he doing popping up? I mean, it was a great goal, but when Dennis Smith used to go mental at Gary Bennett for appearing in the complete opposite area of the pitch, there was a moment of like, what is he doing on the edge of the box?
I'll say about this situation with Hume, right? And I do think there's levels to this, right? I think Hume is a brilliant player I think he's a really solid defender. He's the sort of player you want in the side because he'll give everything. He tackles well. He's consistent. He can play right and left. He can play on the right-hand side of a back three if we want them to as well. There was a couple of comments that Lebris made a few weeks ago now, and he was asked about Trai Hume, and he kind of said that Hume was in the side because other players hadn't arrived early enough to get him out the side almost, and he was kind of in possession of the shirt now, but who knows what happens. So I think you've got that aspect to it. Ballard, I just think you've got to have Ballard in the centre of defence. If he's fit, with the form he's in, you've got to have Ballard in that centre of defence because he gives us something that the other defenders don't give us. I think his aerial strength and his combativeness and all that sort of stuff. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Geertruida is another interesting one because Lebris sees him as a centre half. He's talked about him being a central defender. Now, he's actually played right wing back on occasion when he's come on. I think he played right wing back on Saturday, didn't he, for a spell for the last 20 minutes? And Mukiele went on the right-hand side of the back three. So that one's going to be an interesting thing to watch as well because he hasn't come to sit on the bench. You know, he's a Dutch international. He's got a great pedigree. He's going to be wanting to force his way into the team as well. The other bit with Mukiele, I think it'll kind of point us in the direction of where you'll go longer term, is me and Chris have talked about this, and I'm sure you two have as well, about why so much of our attacking play early in the season went down the left with Reinildo. And Lebris was asked about that as well, and he kind of just said it's not a tactical ploy, it's just how things have worked out. And I think he'll want to get more attacking threat coming down from that right-hand flank to give us more balance. And I just think if you've got a back four of Reinildo on one side, Mukiele on the other, and two really strong, solid centre-halves with Xhaka playing in front of them, that's a bloody good defence, as well as being a good attacking threat out wide. So I can't see any other way. If everybody keeps fit, which obviously that's a big touch wood thing there, but if we keep everybody fit, I kind of think that's going to be our back four longer term.
Yeah, well, we've had a bunch of questions about the makeup of the defence. It's been a bit of a theme, hasn't it, of all of the Q&A pods. I think it's something that people are really conscious of. And we've had 3 questions about Reinildo, one from Mackenbauer, one from The Adventures of Mr. and Mrs. Ousted, and also from LD, all asking about Reinildo. I'll start off, because we're kind of talking about it already, from the one from the Ousteds. They've said, with Reinildo back for Chelsea, does he come straight back at left back? Then where does Hume fit in? Or is it a back five, given that Hume and Reinildo have shown they can bomb forward when needed? And also, obviously, Mackenbauer said, with Reinildo due back next game, who do you drop? I think we kind of already answered that, Martin. Do you think he will drop Trai Hume? Because I've got a little sneaking suspicion that Reinildo won't come straight back in. I think he'll be made to earn his place because it was his own daft fault he got suspended, let's be honest, as good as he is. I don't think Lebris will just chuck him straight in there because it maybe sends the wrong message, but I think eventually we'll get there. I don't know what you think, though, for Chelsea.
I think he'll come straight back in. I think Lebris isn't daft. He's not going to cut his nose off to spite his face. He's not dealing with a 17-year-old who needs to be taught a lesson. He's dealing with an experienced international player who will know he's made a mistake. He'll have held his hands up in the dressing room. And he's actually missed, a month now? It's been so long that
maybe
it's taken us to play those 3 games. So
Aston Villa, he got sent off again. Wasn't it? So yeah, over a month.
Yeah. So look, I don't see any way in the world he doesn't start if he's fit on Saturday. The interesting thing for me is I actually think we'll play back with a back five. And I've kind of been of the opinion we wouldn't do that anytime soon. But I just think the Manchester United game will have really played on Lebris's mind when you're looking at the Chelsea game and, some other games coming up as well. And I think if you kind of work on that basis, if you had Reinildo and Mukiele potentially, or Geertruida or whoever else on that other flank, you've got 2 very good players pushing up there. Of course, it brings into question then who plays as part of the 3. If Hume actually plays on the right-hand side of a 3, if Geertruida goes there, Mukiele goes there. You've got a number of options, but I think that's a really strong defence. Of course, you kind of then talk about, well, where does that leave Lafay? Where does that leave Traore, who played on Saturday? Where does that leave Talby? All these other players who could justifiably want to be in that side. But I actually suspect, because after winning on Saturday, I know we talked about yesterday with Simon Pride, didn't we, on Sunday, Gav? And yeah, look, we should be going in this Chelsea game going, look, we're playing the team on equal points. We're as good as them at this moment in time. The reality is, to me, now, given that we won on Saturday, I think this is kind of almost a free hit. We can afford to experiment a little bit in this game to some degree. And I think this is a great opportunity to give a back five a go. And then that changes that whole selection conversation about the defenders.
Yeah, the question from the Ousteds, Andrew, was about maybe going to a back five. Would you see that happening or not? It is, again, it's interesting, as we always keep saying. It's interesting, but it is interesting because, as Martin said, Man United was I wouldn't say it was a humbling experience, but it was maybe a reminder that when sometimes you go to these places away from home, it can be very, very tough, and you maybe just have to focus first and foremost on being solid. And with Reinildo back, it's another option that we didn't previously have. So I would imagine he's thinking about it, but do you think he will actually do that against Chelsea?
I can see it happening. It is a question that keeps cropping up, isn't it, lads? We're often talking about the advantages of 4 or the advantages of 5. And in general terms, I think our defence has been solid. I think we're pretty high up in terms of clean sheets, and I think we've got one of the better defensive records. But what Martin said there, Gav, I can well understand how that Man United game maybe does just shape what we do against Chelsea. Where I would disagree slightly is I think that whilst the formation might change, I think the personnel, I think, might be slightly different, just in that I'm with you in how Reinildo might need to just work his way back into the team. Hume was still really good at the weekend. He did a really good job for us, even though he was on his less familiar side of the pitch. So for me, I think Hume stays in the team, but that, yes, the formation is different. And Martin, I think it was Martin you said there, but is that right that we're on the same points total as Chelsea at the moment? But
we're one behind Liverpool, and we're on the same as Chelsea.
I mean, Chelsea are a basket case club, but they always seem to win trophies, and they are the current World Club champions.
Let's just get it out there, because it'll probably change very quickly. We're currently level on points with the world champions, and we're 1 point behind last season's Premier League winner. So there we go.
So yeah, there'll be some Chelsea podcasters. Instead of us worrying about them, there'll be some Chelsea podcasters recording right now saying, flipping heck, Sunderland are going to give us a few problems, aren't they?
I think the other thing to mention as well, with all of this talk about our defence, there's only Arsenal who have conceded fewer goals than us this season.
Right.
So, we can talk about who's going to come into defence, if we're going to put more defenders in, all this sort of stuff. Only Arsenal have conceded fewer goals, rather. I'll get my English correct. They've conceded fewer goals than we have this season.
But that again, though, that kind of opens up that thought process around, do you take somebody like Hume out when he's been an ever-present? This defence that's been up there with the best in the league, do you needlessly make changes?
But I think
it's
interesting,
if
you go 5 at the back, though, you kind of get rid of that conversation, don't you? Because you can keep Hume. I would actually keep, if we went 5 at the back, I'd put Hume on the right-hand side of the 3, because Mukiele's more attacking minded, and he can get up and down that that right-hand side. And then you bring Reinildo back in on the left, because he can bomb up and down there. It also might negate an issue with Siddiqui, if he needs a rest, because he can kind of make a number up, can't you? So I do think we'll go with the back 5 at Chelsea.
Yeah, it's a brilliant problem to have, just having all these options. You mentioned before Gertruida. He's came on in midfield a handful of times, hasn't started a game yet in the league, but you can just tell he's a good player. And did you see the way he celebrated the second goal? That's a player who's barely been involved, and he's absolutely buzzing and a part of it. And he's only here on loan. I just think we've hit that sweet spot as a club, I think, where everybody wants to be a part of it. There's so much positive energy in the football club at the minute. the squad, there's no egos. So we're in a situation where players like that are just not involved as much as they probably want to be, and yet everybody's grafting their arse off to stay in the team. I mean, I was talking about at the weekend, talking about Wilson Isidore, because there's a player who I think understands the opportunity ahead of him, and he's not the only one. Everyone's doing it. Ballard's stepped up. Hume has stepped up. He's played very well this season. Enzo Lefebvre has stepped up from certainly looks better than he did last season, and he sort of adapted really well to the Premier League. But on the subject of a back five, the reason there's so many people talking about it is because we've got those options, isn't it?
No, that's right.
Top and bottom of it. Nobody's saying we need to switch to a back five because the back four is not good enough. The back four is good enough. That you've just said yourself. Defensively, we've been one of the top teams in the league. So the switch to a back five isn't for negative reasons. It's actually to get more good players on the pitch, isn't it?
No, it absolutely isn't. It's testament to the recruitment, isn't it? And I think that's the thing. People are almost going, okay, what's our best 11 players, or who are our best 11 players? Who would you like to see in the side? And then it's almost kind of figuring out how they all work together to some degree. I think we're all of us are kind of on the same page that Alderete has looked a brilliant player. And even on Saturday, right, that it was the goal that Isidore scored that was offside. The ball that I think he played to Siddiqui absolutely broke about two lines of defence from Aston Villa. And then Siddiqui played it through to Isidore. So he's been hugely impressive. We've all got, Ballard's been superb since he came back into the team for the playoffs. He's been outstanding. And his performance levels have gone up massively.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible how he's improved without actually playing that much, because he was out for so long last season. I think he started 15 games or something last season before the playoffs. He wasn't a regular, but he's come back in. He's looked. If we'd signed him from Germany or something like that, everybody going, Jesus, this lad's an absolute colossus, wouldn't we? So you're kind of going, well, Alderete needs to be in the team. Ballard needs to be in the team. Everything that was seen from Reinildo bar his red card, you're going, he needs to be in the team. Mukiele, he definitely needs to be in the team. Then you're going, how do you fit Getrauder in? How do you get these other lads? So Trai Hume's been brilliant. He's stepped up. How do we keep him in the team? So I think the talk about formation is probably more from that perspective, as you say, rather than going, oh shit, we've looked a bit shaky away at Man U and all this sort of stuff. We should try something different. It's just going, how do we fit all these good players into the side, which again is a bloody wonderful problem to have.
Yeah. We've got a couple of questions about wingers. We'll do these before we go for a break. First up, Dan Ray, my old schoolmate, he sent one in. He says, should Talby be a certain starter on the left wing? He's looked better and better with every game, Andrew. I've got to say, Shemsden Talby has been brilliant in recent weeks off the bench, I think. But it's a different role he's being asked to play. One, he's playing off the left. And two, he's coming off the bench. He's not starting games. So should Talby be a certain starter on the wing, Andrew?
I think he's been really good for us, but I'd just be cautious about saying things like certain starter now. I mean, you are speaking to someone a few weeks ago who was saying on one of these pods, oh, Hume should keep his place at right back, without doubt. And now I'm more than understanding of when yourself and Martin are saying things like, well, maybe he does drop out, or maybe he does have to move position. So
what was it like a fortnight ago? People were saying Talby should be starting left wing back in a back three, in a back five. And then before that, it was he's not good enough. He's been crap in pre-season. You're right. The opinion sways game by game.
Yeah. But he's certainly done really well given where he's come from, and this thing about he is a young lad and he is coming into a completely different culture. So it's a massive task for him, but he's played well. He's performed well. He's contributed, and it was really nice for him to get, well, technically an assist, wasn't it? And I know it was an own goal in the end, but it was because of his good work getting the ball around the edge of our box and just carrying it forward. And that's always nice to see. We are good at breaking out from defence and getting up the pitch quickly at the moment. That's always a positive thing. So he might not need to be in the starting 11 every game. I think that will depend on other factors beyond just his role. But he's certainly a key player, and he is certainly going to be involved in the majority of our games. Can I just make a quick point to do with something else, though?
Yeah, go for it.
Cheers. Martin mentioned, and I think we need to give Isidore some love for that goal. I know it was offside, but what a finish that was.
Brilliant.
Just fantastic.
Superb, wasn't
it just, when you're thinking, oh, is there somebody going to be running in the box? Is he going to be trying to pull it across the 6-yard area? But no, he just thought, I'll have a pop at goal. And then just like in an instant, he's beat the keeper at his near post. It was fantastic bit of skill. It didn't count for anything.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a bit of a trait, isn't it? It's a bit of a trait of a player shooting on the wrong foot. They just go bang. Because it's like, I'm trying to place it. I might as well just twat it one.
Yeah. But no, that was good. It didn't count for anything, but that was good. And Talby has been really good for us. And he a bit like Gertruda, you're saying he was involved in the celebrations, even though he's had a couple of starts. Not had many starts. He's only had a couple of games from the bench. It's nice to see players coming on the pitch and not having any sort of attitude or being a huff. They just want to do what they can in the time they are on the field. Nice to see, isn't it?
Reason for that's very simple, though, because Talby comes on the pitch, he looks back at the bench, and he's got Simon Adingra sat there, he's got Brian Broby sat there, and whoever else. You can't waste your opportunities, unfortunately. So even if you were... I think it's totally fine for players to be pissed off that they're not playing. I want players to want to play, but I want that to be made into a positive rather than negative. I want them to go out and say, well, I'm going to prove to you why I should be playing. Mm-hmm. And the reason we're having this conversation about Shemsden Talby, and the reason why we're having questions from the listeners about Shemsden Talby, is because he came on the pitch and did something. And that's commendable. I mean, we've had another question here, Martin, from James Copley. He says, who are Sunderland's best two wingers? One each side based on what we've seen so far. What do you think?
I think it's a really, really, really difficult one to answer. Because if you're going, who are the most impressive wide players this season? You'd probably go, Lefay and Talby, but both of them played the best football from the left.
Yeah.
So, again, if you kind of join that question with the last one, where does Talby fit in? Do you play him out on the left? Well, if you do, you're taking Lefay out of a position where he's actually been hugely impressive, brilliantly impressive. On the right-hand side, I think we've probably got a little bit more of a problem if you can have problems when you're 7th in the league and only conceded only Arsenal conceded fewer goals and all that sort of stuff. But I think we haven't kind of got firing on the right-hand side of attack as we have on the left. I actually think Adingra's been pretty hard done by. Like, he's played some really good football in spells this season. I think, you've got the potential of Isidore going out there, which he has done on a couple of occasions in game, but not started the game out there. Mayenda's sat on the bench, not having a kick. I think Talby from the left has looked our most dangerous sort of traditional winger, if you like. But again, that's only been from the bench. He hasn't started the game out there. So I think it's a work in progress. The two flanks, the two attacking positions. Traore came in on the right hand side on Saturday. Didn't have his best game, but he did pretty well at Man United, all things considered, the week before. And he's somebody who has got a track record of being able to produce things from that side. So there's an awful lot more to come from him once he's settled down, settled in, and really got his feet under the table with how the team plays. So it's going to be a really interesting one. I actually think right wing will be a position that we strengthen in January. I think that's one of those key positions that we'll look and go, we actually need a bit more out there. I don't think Talby was bought into the club to play right wing. I think that kind of happened by necessity rather than actually by desire. If you looked at all the scouting reports and all the highlights and everything from him previously, his best football came from the left, and you can see it. And Lebris doesn't like wingers playing on the natural side, does he? He likes wingers who can cut in on the stronger foot and then the fullback overlap. And again, we saw that with that last goal on Saturday with Talby can do that. So I haven't answered the question. The fair,
I was waiting for you to get that.
I think on the left-hand side of the fair, without a doubt. Right-hand side, I would say Talby, if you're going to pick one who's played either side. But I actually think his best football has come from the bench on the left.
Yeah, it kind of leads us nicely into this next question from Matt B, who's red and white forever on Twitter. He says, is it time to give Mayenda a chance and stick him on the right? Really not trying to find negatives in such a positive start, but Traore just doesn't offer anything for me and creates a real weakness down the right. And we've also had one from Dave Fenzer, who says, is there something special that Traore is bringing to the team that I'm missing? I don't think he's been horrendous, but Talby seems to bring so much more. That is something I've mentioned about potentially playing Mayenda there. I know you said we might look to strengthen it in January. January's still a long time away. That is an opportunity that we've not really taken to this point. We've got Eliza Mayenda. I think the manager likes him through the middle. But when he's been brought on to play wide. And I think Mayenda on the right-hand side is a more dangerous player than people probably realise. And I would really like to see him start there. So I'm probably, I don't know if Matt actually believes Mayenda should start on the right, but I'm going to say that's what we should do at the weekend. I would like to see him there. Whilst we're still figuring that position out, I think it's worth a go. Now, whether Reggie Lebris goes for it, I don't know. I think there's maybe question marks about Mayenda's ball retention. He's not a midfield player. So you get the best from him when he sort of picks the loose ball up, turns and runs at people. He's not a traditional winger in that sense. But I just want to see him there, even for 1 or 2 games, just to see what he can do. But this whole topic, Andrew, about the right wing position, again, it exists because nobody has really gone there and wowed us. So with that in mind, do you stick with Traore, given he was signed and he plays there? And that's his position, and has a proven track record in his career of playing on that side of the pitch and scoring goals, even in the Premier League when he was at Aston Villa, he was doing it. Or do you go for somebody like Mayenda? Do you even put Simon Adingra there, or is it a case you just put Talby back out there? Like what do you think about that right wing position, sort of in the next, certainly for the Chelsea game?
It is tricky, and it is one of those conversations you can have where we could all have different suggestions that would all be valid. There's no point trying to say Traore played well. He had a bad game, bless him, on Saturday. I don't think it was because he wasn't trying. It just, everything he seemed to do just did not come off. Mayenda, like a lot of players, arguably deserves more minutes on the pitch, and he is very good at getting us up the field quickly. So I can see the call for Mayenda to perform. I don't think it's as easy as just picking a player and saying he should play, because it's based on so many other factors. Talby, yeah. Do you put him on the right just to get him in the team, or do you keep him back on the bench to bring on the left later on in the game? Lads, I honestly don't know.
Do you know, it probably depends on if we go to a back 5 or not. That's the big thing, What I would do would be probably play Mayenda there, and that would be it. But, depends on other things.
I will say in answer to the thing about why is Traore playing, essentially, was the question.
Yeah. This
is a lad who, you go through his career, he gets a goal 1 every 4 games. He gets goals. And, Lebris had talked about the need for us to score more goals, get a second goal. He scores regularly. He can get a goal out of nothing. And I think that's probably a big part of the thinking, as well as his experience in a still relatively young side.
Yeah. Right, we'll go for a quick break, and then we'll be back to answer a few more of these questions. We'll see you soon.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? easy with the new Galaxy Watch 8. Sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the Dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
We are back with a couple of questions around players. First up, and I'll come to you with this one, Martin. Billy Blythe has sent us a message and said, Rigg really struggled yesterday. He looked really frustrated when he knew he was going to be subbed about a minute before. Do we persist or give someone else a game? I mean, Chris Rigg, a young player, he's going to have days where it doesn't work for him. He's going to have days where it does work for him. The club's obviously got a plan for him. Is it at the stage where, you have to bring him out of the team, or do you think they'll crack on?
Look, I thought on Saturday Rigg had a poor game. And I think, as Andrew talked about earlier, and as I mentioned earlier as well, Traore had a poor game. So, it doesn't matter if you're an experienced player with a couple of 100 games under your belt or a young lad coming through. Players are going to have off games and bad games every now and again. I thought Rigg struggled to get into the game. And I do wonder whether playing him in the centre of midfield is potentially not doing him any favours at all at the minute. He went over to the right wing after Traore went off. And what was interesting was, and again, I think we talked about this with Simon Pride on Sunday, Rigg was about to come off. And then Traore made those 2 mistakes. He gave the ball away in bad positions and the substitution got changed. So, Rigg actually had 20-odd more minutes on the field than he perhaps would have otherwise. Look, we all know that Chris Rigg's an excellent prospect, a very, very good prospect. The club think incredibly highly of him. And I think you kind of have to take a step back with Ringo. He's 18-year-old, playing Premier League football for a team that's 7th in the Premier League. He's not first choice. He's not going to be first choice this season. If the club thought he wasn't going to be able to do a job, they wouldn't put him in. You've got Dan Neil sat there on the bench. He could have feasibly come into that role that Rigg played on Saturday, and he would have, he could have done a job in there. But the club preferred to put Rigg in, and there's probably some other reasons to that as well outside of his ability. But again, if they didn't think he was capable of doing a job, they wouldn't put him in. Now, I don't think he'll play many consecutive games. I think you'll see him come in for a game or two, come out for a game or two. And that'll be the kind of way that he goes with him. But he's a talent, and I think you've just got to be patient with him. And, come January, if he's not getting too many minutes when Diarra's back and stuff like that, perhaps it's a loan in January for a few months in the Championship. Perhaps he's better off staying around the club. We can't answer that. People like Christian Speakman, Gasolfi, Regis Briss, they're the only ones who'll be able to kind of give a correct answer to that. But, one game doesn't make him a bad player who's not capable of playing in the Premier League, just like one game wouldn't make him a guaranteed world superstar for the next 10 years. He's a young lad. He's learning his trade still.
Yeah.
And he's got a ton of potential, which we have to nurture and back.
It's funny with these conversations about players who are out of form, isn't it, Martin? Because there was a couple of players off colour, and we're still winning Premier League games. Now that's that's not too bad. I mean, there's been plenty of times in the past where we were in the position Wolves were in. Their fans were not very happy. They were complaining when the team checked back, instead of going forward. There was a lot of chants against mainly the ownership rather than the manager. But you don't revel in other people struggling, but it is nice when our biggest problem is, do we start with an 18-year-old or do we just use them a bit more from the bench? We're not in a bad spot, are we?
I'd revel in Newcastle's suffering.
Yes, fair point. Other than that, though, it is nice for us to just, our biggest headaches are all these little 5% tweaks that we hope might improve the team, or what's the best way to get the best out of Chris Rigg, not why are we giving a player a spot when he's nowhere near it,
I think one of the interesting things with Rigg as well is, it was that article that Isidore, or the thing that Isidore did with was it Le Quip?
Yeah.
But he was talking about Rigg in training, and he said like Rigg was being a bit lazy in training, and Grant Xhaka had to give him a bit of a rocket and all that sort of stuff. And you cannot imagine a better person and player for Rigg to have the next 2 or 3 years alongside in training and on the field as Xhaka. Like, yeah. I'll guarantee you now, in 10 years' time, or 15 years' time, 20 years' time, when Chris Rigg's looking back on his career, he will say, like, Granit Xhaka coming into Sunderland was the biggest influence on his career. You can almost guarantee it, can't you? Because the attitude to training, the attitude to the game, and if Chris Rigg's showing frustration on the field, and look, he misplaced a couple of passes and he wasn't maybe quick enough on the ball, he'll be wanting to live up to Granit Xhaka's expectation of him on the field, and that'll have had some part of that frustration, and that is not a bad thing at all.
No, and you mentioned Habib Diarra before, and he came in to replace Habib Diarra. That's the thing, and Habib Diarra is our record signing and is injured, so you bring in a young lad to replace somebody who really we're probably expecting to be one of our most important players at this stage, and he's got injured. And we've had another question from Michael Dunn, who says, just how big a miss is Habib Diarra in that midfield three? Points return says not, but think we are over-reliant on Xhaka and Siddiqui. And I think, there probably is a point that, Andrew, but we the results would say we haven't missed him a massive amount. We've got by, haven't we? And Rigg's had good games. I thought he was really good in that Villa game when he got took off. So it's not as if we were talking about this before with a couple of players. Traore's not became a bad player overnight. This player hasn't become a bad player overnight. It's one game, and whilst yes, Rigg hasn't particularly lit up quite as much as we might have wanted him in the last couple of games, it's not a cause for concern. And yeah, we are missing Diarra, aren't we? And that's fine. We are missing him because he's a good player, but at the same time, the results are still good. So maybe we aren't missing him too much.
It's another one of those conversations where you can make an argument either way and be able to justify it. Because, Craigie, when you think of missing a player, in the past it would be, right, well, if that player's out, the whole team collapses.
Yeah.
We are continuing and still picking up results. we've not lost any games that we shouldn't have lost. So that suggests we're managing just fine. When he comes back, we could be even better, and that'll be fantastic to see. But there'll be no desperate need to rush him back into the side and risk further injury, for example, because the players still around are doing well. And touching on somebody like Chris Rigg, it's obvious to me that, yes, he might have had a slightly off game on Saturday, but that's all it is. It's an off game. It's not somebody out of his depth who is never going to make it. We will get plenty from Chris Rigg, whether that's alongside Diarra in a few months' time or not. We don't know, but at the risk of repeating myself, we're near the top of the Premier League. If this is us struggling without our record signing, then that bodes well for what's going to happen in the rest of the season.
Yeah. On the subject of Rigg, Martin, we've had a question from LD who says, should Dan Neil come in for Chris Rigg at Chelsea?
Well, I think Dan Neil's been unfortunate not to see more minutes or get more minutes on the field. I think that's the first thing you can say. The other aspect to it, which we don't know the details of, but he's obviously out of contract at the end of the season. And there will be some of that coming into the thinking. If you've got Chris Rigg there on a long-term contract, he's committed to his future. Dan Neil, for whatever reason, hasn't agreed a new contract. Looking likely that he's going to move on. I think, none of us would be surprised if, come the end of January, he wasn't here. So you can understand why they would prioritise Rigg over Dan Neil. That said, I think we're going to need Dan Neil, especially with Siddiqui's off to AFCON, and if Diarra's fit, if he's off to AFCON and all that sort of stuff, we're going to need Dan Neil. So I think there is an argument for Dan Neil coming into the team at some point. But again, we're only viewing this and talking about this from a pretty one-dimensional place. We're not seeing what's going on in training behind the scenes, how people are performing in training, and all that sort of stuff. But we've got Dan Neil there, who's as we've all seen in the past, he's an exceptionally good player. Played his 200th game on Saturday for us, which I think kind of went under the radar a little bit because he hasn't been around the team. But that was his 200th game, and he's still a relatively young lad in terms of his football and development. So to have that many games under his belt at, 24 is he? 23, 24?
Yeah.
Excellent. So, look, he will be banging on the door of the manager saying, I should be getting a chance in this team. Now, again, if he comes in on Saturday, it could be a great game for him to come in on Saturday away at Chelsea. It could be a brilliant opportunity for him. But, I think he'll get a chance. He'll start a game at some point sooner rather than later. And again, it's then up to him to take it.
So does he play on Saturday then? What would you say?
Oh, look, I think if you're going to pick the team,
you're looking at starting 11, so we're looking for you to bring us the answers.
I might be. I don't often get it right. But, if you're going with that back five like we talked about earlier in the first half of the show, Xhaka's going to be in the team. Lafayette's going to be in the team. So do you chuck Dan Neil in there in the centre midfield as well? I think he might do if Siddiqui's not fit. If Siddiqui's fit, him, Lafayette and Xhaka would most likely be the midfield three. So I think it would be difficult to argue that one of those three should be excluded from the team in favour of Dan Neil right now. But I think, again, it's almost, I don't feel comfortable in saying it is a no-lose game on Saturday because obviously we can lose, but the importance of it has been kind of reduced a little bit because we won Saturday. I think if we hadn't won Saturday and we're going, shit, we need to go to Stamford Bridge and try to get a point to keep things ticking over, I think you can afford to rest Siddiqui. If he's got a knock that he's maybe struggling with and would benefit from a week out, this is a good game to rest him. And in that case, you could argue that Dan Neil should come in to replace him.
Yeah. On the subject of Chelsea, Andrew, we've had one from Matty Oliver. He says, should we be fearing Chelsea? I don't think they were amazing at the weekend and Forest had some decent chances. I genuinely think a point is more than achievable. I think we should go there without fear. I think we're their equals going into this game when you look at the points. So there's no reason why we shouldn't go there and think, why can't we get something here? But there's nothing to fear, surely.
No, I'm not worried in the build-up to the game so far. Chelsea, I said briefly earlier, are a bit of a basket case club. They somehow seem to be forever lurching from one disaster to another, and yet they're still picking up trophies all the time. I don't quite know how they do it. They seem to me to win, like, for example, the Liverpool game, last-minute goal against Liverpool to beat them, played really well in that match. But they do seem to have this kind of something about a Saturday 3:00 at Stamford Bridge. You'll often see that they've lost 2-0 to somebody who's maybe mid-table. I can think of a few clubs who have gone there over the last couple of seasons and got a result. So why not us? We're doing well. We are not under any particular pressure. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea won because they're a good team with some quality players, but also I wouldn't be surprised if Sunderland got a result. We can certainly give them a game and have a real chance of getting something.
Yeah, well, why not? Let's go there and give them a at least go toe to toe and say where you're equal. I keep saying it, but we are. As it stands on the points, we are basically the same as the world champions. So
So
Sunderland
we're
are
basically
world
world champions. That's right. Fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go there and do it. Yeah. We've actually not really mentioned Wolves particularly too much, but we've had a couple of questions around the Wolves game, so I will chuck them in. Steve Richards, Martin, he says, what did you make of Pereira's post-match swipe at our tactics and the quality of football played in the first half? Sour grapes, or does he have a point? And I don't know if you've actually seen what he said or heard what he said. I haven't got the quotes to hand, but he effectively said that, that given the way we played, we maybe didn't deserve to win the game. It was words to that effect. I saw some other comments that he made about Wolves' football, and he said something along the lines of like, we were we played good football, and then when we put on two strikers, we were going long, and that's not our game. And I was reading that thinking, if I was a Wolves fan, I'd be really worried that this guy just seems more bothered about playing style than he is getting results. If you've got a 6'7" striker, I think the big lad that brought off the bench, he's 6'7", 6'8", and Jorgen Strand Larsen, who must be 6'5", then wouldn't it be natural to go long to two players that big who can dominate in the air? I'm thinking, if you're in trouble, you just find a way to win games. And then in the same breath, he kind of did look down his nose a bit at the way Sunderland played. Interesting comments, I would say.
Well, it was almost like the Brendan Rodgers school of post-match interviews, wasn't it? When people come from far and wide to see this magnificent team that everybody's talking about, and you shut your bollocks up, man. You're talking shite, and it taps into this whole thing, which I've hated for a long time. And I know you and Chris have spoken about as well, but this notion that there's a right way to play football or a better way to play football, it's bollocks. Like, the best way to play football is to win a game. And
simple as that.
The best football I've seen us as a club play ever has been under Peter Reid and that spell under Sam Allardyce. Up until now, right? Up until this season. Those would be the two things I would say, those are the best I've ever seen us play. And what we do, get the ball out wide, up into the Quinny, knock down Kevin Phillips, get the ball out wide, get crosses swung in. Under Sam Allardyce, I thought we played some good football, but it wasn't passing it around at the back for the sake of it or keeping possession for the sake of it. And you can blame Pep for an awful lot of stuff, but I think he's affected what some coaches think of as good football. But we've seen it in the past, right? We've seen Vincent Kompany take Burnley up, stick to his principles, if you like, inverted commas, try to play this football, try to play football, never give, disregard what's going on in the actual game, just try to play football. And it's hard to argue against it when him getting them relegated but sticking to that got him the bloody Bayern Munich job. So you can see why some managers would kind of keep going on this rhetoric about style of football, because they are seeing that club as a stepping stone for them to go and do something else. If he was purely focused on Wolves, he would be much more concerned that they just got beaten off a newly promoted side and haven't won a game since April than he would be about the style of football that we played in the first half. You and I were talking, again, going back to the podcast that we did with Simon Tried after the game. I saw I watched him talk about the football in the first half. He was saying it was an awful game in the first half. It was stop-start. Nobody played any good football. It was an awful game, all this sort of stuff. I did not see that at all. No. I thought we played really well. I thought we controlled the game. We passed the ball well. We attacked well. And to me, those comments have actually got nothing to do with the game. That's a manager going into self-preservation mode because he knows he is under a whole heap of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my impression too. When I did the reaction pod with the lads in the pub after the game, obviously we were buzzing because we'd won the match. But when we went in, we talked about how well we played in that first half. And then I read what he'd said, the Wolves manager, and I'm like, what game were you watching? And you're totally right. And there was a whole podcast and series of podcasts in this notion that there's a right way to play football. And I think people dig out some of the podcasts that Sam Allardyce does now, the No Tippy Tappy Football Podcast. I mean, it's even in the title of his show there, isn't it? You can kind of guess where Sam Allardyce comes from on it. But there's been some really good conversations between him and other people about the way the game has changed, and it's not for the better. And I actually think part of the reason Sunderland have had such a good start of the season is because we've gone the opposite direction to a lot of these clubs who believe they've got to have a way of playing, who believe there's a right way to play football. Our manager believes there's a way to win games of football, and there's a difference, you know? We set up and we built a squad to do that.
I think that as well. I think our players will know what the manager wants them to do. He has got a way of playing football, right? But it's a pragmatic way of playing football. It's very much going, okay, well, we're happy to not have possession of the ball. We don't have to have possession of the ball to feel as if we're controlling the game. We can be really structured defensively and let those lads have the ball. And we're really comfortable with that because we know when we get it, we can go up here and score, or we can go along and get a chance. And unusually for promoted side in the Premier League, we love defending.
Yeah.
We're really happy to defend and we get off on it. And there's not many promoted clubs have come up and done that. You've had, Russell Martin company, you can rattle these managers off who want to kind of prove themselves rather than for the good of the club. And I'm just so glad we've got a manager who is pragmatic like that in his approach.
I think that feeds into a lot of the conversations we're having about, do we flick from 4 at the back to 5? Where do we use Talby? Where do we use so-and-so? All this type of conversation. We can have those conversations and be confident that Lebris is thinking these things through himself and that there's every chance that he will tweak things if it works in a particular scenario. There's no way Southampton fans last year were second guessing what the manager was going to do because, like you say, we all knew how Russell Martin played and the team he'd be putting out. So there'd be no point considering other options because it was never going to happen. Lebris, is much more open and flexible. And again, like I said, with other things, we're all the better for it.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of questions about Stadium of Light stuff. I think we'll kind of move into that area now. There's actually loads of questions. We might even have to do a Q&A part 2 this week because we've got so many that we haven't even got through. But a few about the Stadium of Light I thought might be interesting to chat about. The first one from Mr. Ripsaw. Then he got that wrong. He says, the multiple rows of empty seats at the front of the away section, bloody Coventry, doesn't look good and reduces the attendance. So assuming Sunderland stay up, Andrew, will away fans be moved next season and where should they be located? Now, before I let you answer that one, this at the Atmosphere group meeting a couple of weeks back was a topic of conversation about moving away fans. I'll let you give your opinion before I kind of throw in what the consensus was on that. But the moving of the away fans is something which comes up time after time, doesn't it? Are you in favour of it, or do you like them out the way up height?
It does come up all the time, and I'm worried, Gav, because I've got a nasty feeling that whatever I say, you're going to go, well, everybody else thinks differently, and you're talking out your backside. Hey, again, we're not in a bad position when one of the main problems is there's a few rows of empty seats at the top of the away end. And again, it's another nice problem to have. I personally would keep the away fans up there. I think when the atmosphere is poor, it's not because there's not any away fans sat next to you. I think it's because the game's not going well or the team's not getting the results we want.
Yeah.
Some of the best atmospheres at the Stadium of Light have come in recent times with the away fans out of sight. Also, I don't know if it's me just being a miserable old man, but often people's idea of, if there's away fans near you can have a bit of back and forth. It's just crap chants like "Who are you?" or I don't know, just rubbish like you're just a small town in, and then insert the name of the nearest town to the other team. I can't be bothered with all of that. I'd rather have like 40,000 mentalists filling out the bottom bowl, just absolutely getting behind the team and singing pro Sunderland songs. And if I never have to hear from an away fan again at the stadium, that's fine by me, because it should mean that the lads are playing well and the fans are getting into it.
Well, you'd be glad to know, Andrew, that the consensus agreed with you. But I kind of just, not originally though. So David Bruce asked the room, would you be in favour of moving the away fans? And virtually everybody raised their hand. Virtually everybody said yes, there would be. Me included, by the way, because my initial reaction was, oh yeah, because I've always said that. And then almost immediately I went to the room of people. I went, hang on, is that an opinion that we've had for years that maybe isn't so much relevant now? Because in the past, we haven't sold the stadium out. The atmosphere has been poor. If you think about it now, we sell every seat in the ground that we can. The atmosphere since the Coventry game has been unbelievable. Would the away fans moving really help? When would you not? And after I said that, David Bruce asked the room again, and nobody put a hand up. So I think what it is, I think that opinion about moving away fans is one that's been there for probably 10 years. That's really just sort of dormant in our minds. It's like, yeah, we should move the away fans. Back when we were in League One and we were getting 30,000 people, it was, back then it would have improved the atmosphere, because then you would have had less empty seats. You would have had a reason to chant and stuff. Whereas now I don't think it's the case. I think because we're back in the Premier League, we're selling out. You're probably right. We do want them out the way. I mean, Wolves on Saturday, I think that might be one of, if not the best in terms of tickets sold away followings we've had this season. It looked like every single ticket was gone. Can you imagine all of them by the pit and the difference it would have made? And the fact that we score so many goals now at the south end of the stadium. Imagine you plonk a load of away fans behind that goal. It does completely change I think the complexion has changed completely.
The complexion has changed, as you say, from a footballing sense, but also logistically. I wouldn't fancy being head of that project to move the away fans now. I mean, the majority of away fans probably come in by bus, so they'll come in along Kia Hardy Way. So that's probably easier to manage. A lot of them using the trains are probably gonna have to go to Central Station, and therefore are getting the metro, and it's easier to get off at the Stadium of Light metro as opposed to St. Peter's. You've said there, we're selling most seats. There's been a high take-up of season tickets. How do you shift a load of season ticket holders now to accommodate away fans? There'd be a lot of factors to make it happen now. And the benefit, as you say, Gav, I think people are realising that now the way the club is at present, the benefit would be minimal, if at all.
See, I reckon there's one thing they got wrong with the stadium when they built this. They tried to replicate the north stand with there's a full well end in there, and then the south stand is a rubber end. And it should have been the other way around. The extension should have gone in the south stand. That should have been the home side. And you've got the flow of people now coming in over the new bridge. So you can never put the away fans back in that side of the ground. You can put them in the north stand, and you'll have home fans above them, which causes, if you're looking at it from a safety perspective, you're just reversing the safety issue. So that's not a thing. The only thing that will come into it at some point is it's mandated by the Premier League that you've got to have a certain amount of away fans at pitch level. And I think we've got a dispensation for it for this season. So that's going to be the interesting thing to chuck into that conversation when the time's right. Because if the Premier League, and they could well say, we have got to move the away fans to pitch level, as far as I understand it. In which case, that creates a whole different conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Mags have getting away with it, so let's see how long we can get away with it for. Yeah. Another one around stadiums. I'll come to you, Martin, on this one. Rich first time I've balls the name up properly. Richard Shaw. It wasn't even a difficult one. Richard Shaw, 86. He says, "Do you think the club should add another statue around the SoL to join Bob Stoke? And if yes, who would you choose and why?" Interesting, because a lot of money's gone into stadium development. That Stoke statue is so iconic. What do you reckon? If you could, if we had the money and it was going to happen and you could pick who it would be, who would you like to see a statue of outside the ground?
Oh, look, I actually think they should do a number of them. And they should
A bit like
be
that, a
all,
bit like at the Emirates.
yeah, they should be all the way around the ground. And, yes, it might cost a bit of money, but, in Premier League spending terms, it's chicken feed, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
absolute nothing.
And we've
So,
got great sculptors in the Northeast, who, forgive us the name of the guy who does he did the Vaux, the Dre Horse, and you might know Andrew. He done See 'em Tommy, and
Are you thinking of Ray Lonsdale?
that's him. Yeah, but we've got some really good local sculptors. I mean, he's just one. I'm sure there's many, but it's another way to feed into that sort of getting local talent involved, local businesses involved. Yeah.
no, there is, but look, you go through our incredible history as a football club, and there's so many names that should be honoured, whether it's with the statues or naming the other three stands properly. You go all the way back, you've got people like Rich Carter and Bobby Gurney should be commemorated, Charlie Hurley, of course, and you've got, Bobby Kerr, people like that. But, you're going into this era now where you got the Jimmy Montgomery stand, and the brilliant thing about that was that was done while he's still with us, and he was able to see it. Like I think Quinny should get something similar, and he should be able to see it and be there and be part of it all. There's tons of names, and Andrew will be able to rattle off a whole load of ones. But even people like Jimmy Thorpe, the goalkeeper who tragically died after an incident in the game against Chelsea at Roker Park, like he should be remembered by the club properly. And that you've got all of these stories and people who are the fabric of the football club. And up until recently, we haven't really remembered them very well. And I think that could be a brilliant thing that the club could do. And again, in terms of cost outlay, with Premier League money, it doesn't actually cost much. It will not cost them much to do it properly.
Yeah, I support you with the Quinny one. Actually, I think he's said repeatedly though, I don't think it's right, and it's not. I think you should just do it without his approval because he deserves it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, get him a statue. He deserves it. But I agree. I think I would like to see some. They've got it at the Emirates, haven't they, where they've got like statues all the way around the ground, and it just looks brilliant. And eventually, a couple more years in the Premier League, maybe that's the sort of. I'm sure it's in the plans because we should have more of these things to make it feel more like home as well. It's another thing, kind of that meeting I was talking about. It's the conversations that the club are having now with fans around how do we make the stadium less sterile? How do we make the area around the stadium less sterile? How do we make this feel like ours? When you approach it, you see it. There was and I'm sure Tom Albrighton will be glad I've brought this up, but there's a whole conversation around bringing the lights back on the top of the stadium because that was uniquely us, that was something that, you could see the spotlights and that's the stadium light. And all these things are conversations the club are having now. But in terms of statues, immediately the names that spring to mind are the likes of Quinny and stuff. And I agree with your point about doing these things while people are alive to see it. We shouldn't wait for people to pass, as sad as that is, to commemorate them accurately, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree with definitely with Quinny.
Agreed as well, 100% on Quinn. Although whether he would actually like it himself or not, I don't know. He seems quite unsure about it. I think now that the Kiel crossing is open, we definitely need to get something either at the back of the Roker end or on the side of the west stand, the brickwork, because that is a stunning approach to the stadium now.
Mm-hmm.
You go to, if you come along Hay Street or from that side of the ground still, you're met by Stokoe. If you come along from the north side, you're met by the Miners' Lamp. So yeah, to have something that means something to the club or refers to the identity or the history in that part of the stadium, I think would be phenomenal. And wouldn't it be nice to think that in a few years' time, we're all sat here saying it should be Lebris or it should be, I don't know, Xhaka or whoever, because they've been here a while and they've achieved something with Sunderland. And yeah, maybe you've got to find room to fit Broby in alongside Quinn because he scored the winner at Wembley or whatever it is. It would be lovely to think. But yeah, I do think certainly now the Kiel crossing is open and they are doing a subway, aren't they? Over.
Yes.
Yeah, I think once that is finished, that is going to be one of the main routes to the ground. So get something in there if possible.
What would you make Xhaka's statue out of, Andrew?
Might be pricey though. I've seen the price of granite worktops and kitchens. I wouldn't want to fork out for too much of that. Like,
I'm sure Kirill can afford it.
Yeah. Well, let's do a couple more on the stadium. We've had this one for you, Andrew. John Harrison. He says, away from the football, has anyone experienced safety issues on the concourse at half time? Been down twice this season with my young son to use the toilets, and it's bordering on dangerous. It's rammed with people pushing and blocking exits. Seems an accident waiting to happen. Martin mentioned there about things they got wrong during the stadium build. One they certainly got wrong was the size of the concourses, in my opinion. They're just not big enough.
It does get tight down there. There's little things could be done to improve what we already had there. Just things like, and I know it's difficult, I'm not criticising the people on the tills, but speed up the service on the concourses because you've got long queues snaking back. And then that then blocks the flow of people who are trying to get down and get to the toilets and what have you. I get on me, again, this is going to make me sound like an old man. There's a lot of people down there who just seem oblivious to the fact that there's people trying to move around them.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got your food, if you've got your drink, can you maybe just move out of the way of the entrances and exits to the toilets, maybe, and just move away from the concourses so the people from the kiosks, sorry. So you want to be so the people who want to use them can access it. I've not ever felt unsafe yet in answer to the question, but I can appreciate why some people would feel a little uneasy. I mean, I'm like a 6'4" bloke, but if you're trying to take a young kid through those crowds, it's a bit worrying, and we might have to look at maybe opening out one or two of the exit areas and having an outside bit that's penned off like they do for concerts. That's happened in the past at gigs at the stadium, and that's worked quite well. That might just move the flow. And also, sorry to bring the mood down and talk about toilets, but could we maybe just keep an eye on the cubicles and make sure the people who are queuing for the cubicles are because they actually need the bog and not the bloody smoke or do God knows what else they do?
Well, I think you've kind of... You bang on, and I think something you just touched on would solve a lot of these issues. They need to open up outside. We said this at the Atmosphere meeting the other week. The concourses are tiny, they're too tight. You can't navigate around them. You can't even accurately see where the queues start and end for bars and things like that. And then you're right, people trying to get to toilets and stuff are then trying to get past those queues. They've moved so I'm in the southwest corner. They've moved where the E-bars were even further down. So there were just the E-bars that you roll in and out. They've now got sort of holes in the wall for them, and there's less of them. So straight away, that experience has got worse, and that's a newly introduced system that should help to deal with the queues around the kiosks. But ultimately, there's just not enough room on them concourses, and there has been a problem for a long time with people smoking in the toilets. You can't go to the toilet at halftime now. And there's people are ignorant, idiots. That's all it is. But if you open up them outdoor areas, it at least allows people to go out and vape and smoke if they need to. And it stops the rest of us having to breathe it in while we're trying to have a piss. It's rancid, really. But there are a lot of reasons why opening up areas outside the ground makes sense. And I think it's something they're going to have to look at, because we're selling out consistently. So where we would sell out once in a blue moon before and you didn't have these problems, we've now got 47,000 people going to the game, and the concourses are more packed than they were when it was already a problem. I mean, parking around the city is now more difficult. The knock-on of having more people at the stall every home game is evident. And if we're going to continue to be good in the Premier League, we're going to keep selling out games. And the club have got to find ways of dealing with the migration and the congestion on the concourses. And to me, the only way you can do that is opening up areas outside, because you can't make the concourses bigger. We can't knock through. We can't have major stadium developments until we get to a point where we're going to extend the south stand. Then maybe they can do it. But as of right now, just put barriers outside and get people manning those areas, and get e-bars outside. And if people need to have a smoke, at least they can go outside and get out the way, and it'll help so much. There's probably reasons why it hasn't been done, but they need to explore it, in my opinion. I'm pretty strong on that view. It's I totally sympathise with this guy. I've got a little in and just far too young to come to games or anything. But if I had like a kid who was 5, 6, 7-year-old come to a match for the first time, I wouldn't be able to go out onto the concourse and just get them a bottle of water or something to eat. It's impossible, and that shouldn't be the case. And I raised this at the meeting that, like, me and my mates, we like to get a beer. So we like to get a beer at half time. On Saturday, we had to do that at 40 minutes, because if I don't do it at 40 minutes, I won't get one. I won't get back my seat for the second half. But the problem there is that for that 5 minutes plus the rest of injury time, I'm not supporting my team. And that's my choice to go and do that, as it is thousands of other people. But from the club's perspective, would you not prefer the thousands of us who want to get a drink or something to eat at half time or use the toilet? Would you not prefer us to be in our seats until the referee blows the whistle? Then we leave our seats. We know we can go to the toilet. We know we can get a drink. We know we can get something to eat. And we can do all of that before we get back to our seat. The club need to find a solution to all of these things. And it might seem too simplistic for us to say it, but opening up areas outside is got to be the most straightforward route to doing that.
The only potential reason I can think of is why they might be cautious not to do that is you might then have idiots trying to jump over to then get into the game for nout. But you just have to manage that risk and deal with it. Mm-hmm. We can't extend the south stand because that's where I've earmarked my Brian Broby statue to go. So that's not happening. But just here's a little possibility. Like when you go to the Empire Theatre or whatever, and during the interval, there's somebody walking along with like a tray with snacks in. Could you get a few people walking the perimeter of the pitch at half time, just selling crisps and chocolate and that, so that if somebody wants a snack, they don't have to queue up for the hot food vendors. They can just go to the front of the stand and just get it off that person instead. Does that reduce the amount of people needing to go into the concourses? Could a few little moves add up to make a bigger difference, perhaps? I'm not a businessman. There might be reasons why you can't do some of these things, but it would be nice if we tried and just came up with other solutions. And also, if it's a case of speeding up concourses and kiosks and making it easier to buy your snacks, in the long run, that's better for the club because you're getting more money into the tills.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, isn't it? Just making money. Like I said, we've got tons of questions left. I think we're going to have to leave some of these for maybe one of the other pods later in the week. But I'll end off on this one because it's probably going to leave us with a nice positive instead of whinging, which we've just done there for the last few minutes. Martin, this one's from Jack Asbury. He says, does seeing what's happening at Forest make you so glad about our ownership and management? Sacked their second manager of the season. We're in October. Looks like they're going to appoint Sean Dyche. They're a mess, aren't they? Like, it doesn't matter what anybody says. It's a recipe for disaster when you're sacking manager after manager this early in the season. And it does make you reflect on what position we're in, doesn't it?
Well, it does. The interesting thing with that is Forest, during the summer, were kind of held up as the club that we should try to emulate. They come up. Well, they were winning. Nuno had been there for a while. He had a pragmatic style of play, and he got the best out of the team and all that sort of stuff. So it just shows how quickly things can change. Now, quickly things can can go from looking as if everything's pretty good to looking like a complete shambles and a complete mess. Now, we have to be very thankful of everything that we've got at the moment in time. There's that little thing at the back of your mind with Kirill and the ownership that they've been quite ruthless in the managerial sort of decisions. They got rid of Tony Mowbray at a very kind of early stage in things, maybe not looking as if they might go right. They made a bad appointment in Beale. So, we could have been, if you look a couple of years behind, that's kind of us again. So these things come around. And I think we just, have to be thankful that everything's going really well at this moment in time, really positively. And yeah, we haven't got a complete mentalist in charge of the club, which seems to be the thing that can go wrong on occasion at different clubs. But yeah, look, it's football, and again, it just shows how quickly things can change, and you think everything's fine and dandy, and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled from under you.
Yeah,
it surprised me. I heard a podcast with a couple of Forest fans at the weekend, and they were still massively in favour of Marinakis. Now, I don't know if he's selling Marinakis Kool-Aid at the ground or something, but like you, Martin, from the outside, it seems to me like he's a really difficult character to work with, and is causing a lot of these problems. He's bringing them on the club by his actions. And I was staggered to hear these fans almost as if they were scared to say anything against him.
Do you remember that interview when because Morgan Gibbs-White looked like he was going to go to Tottenham, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere he signed a new contract, and Marinakis it was him and Morgan Gibbs-White on the pitch, and it was like he was being held at gunpoint, told what to say. And then was it last season when he ran on the pitch to have a go at Nuno? It's just not normal behaviour, is it? I know they've had success. They're obviously looking at it and going, this is the first manager since Frank Clark to take them into Europe. So, it's been a long time since Forest have had, they were out of the Premier League for God knows how long. So this owner has brought them relative success, and, they're seeing the team in Europe again, but they're seeing the team. So their next game, I think they play Porto, might be right or wrong with that, I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure they play somebody in Europe this coming week. And they'll be onto their third manager in Europe. So even though they're in Europe, they've actually probably lost a lot of progress. Like, they're playing in Europe, and I remember reading things from Forest fans saying, like, it feels like a bit of an albatross around the neck at the minute, Europe. They've been longing for it. They're in there, and all of a sudden they're looking at the league form and they're like, I think we could probably do without this. But to go back to the question, like, it does make you thankful that we haven't got that kind of craziness. That was us under Ellis Short, maybe not as extreme as Marinakis is, because we barely saw Ellis Short, but we knew he could flip on a decision quickly. Someone would tell him something and he would just do it. He would. There was a story Tom White told on the podcast, and he didn't name any names, but he told a story about a player the club were actively trying to get rid of. The manager and the sporting director at the time were actively trying to get rid of. This player got man of the match, and in the Montgomery suite after the game, Ellis Short told everybody that he was going to give him a new contract. And then there had to be we've been there before. We've had owners who just are far too emotional and reactive, and eventually you look at the example of us. Eventually, it did cost us. And I'm looking at Forest and looking at the talent they've got, and I'm thinking, bloody hell, if you go down with that team, which is feasible at the minute, you're gonna be in serious bother. And I think Dyche would be a good appointment, because he's developed this reputation as he's a bit of a sort of like a modern day Big Sam, modern day Pulis, like a firefighter, a Warnock maybe, Sean Dyche. But I think it's indicative of the situation they found themselves in, that they flip-flop between different styles of managers. And it makes you look at it and go, I'm just so glad that we've got an owner like Kirill, that we've got a manager like Reggie Slabris. That actually is, to go back to something Martin said before, we were envying Forest in the summer. I imagine their fans are envying Sunderland now, and it's not been 2-3 months since those conversations were happening.
Gav, you mentioned there a couple of times that you've been invited to a meeting with club representatives to talk about issues at Sunderland and what can we change, what needs to be improved. I don't get the impression these meetings are just the club paying lip service to the fans.
No,
you know.
David Bruce is a fan, Andrew.
Yes,
so he's got Sunderland's interests at heart and is in a position to influence things, and that's what's important about them meetings.
Yeah, definitely. There's two aspects to the club, isn't there? There's the football on the pitch. That side of things is being managed properly. If Lebris was to get sacked or asked to leave or whatever, you would know why, and there'd be things in place to replace him. Whereas it just seemed to me as if what's his name? Nuno would maybe said something out of turn, and he's upset the ownership, so he was out on his ear. So, but yeah, the football side of the club is going well, but off the pitch, there's these attempts to make the club better. We've seen the retail improve. You're attending meetings, and there'll be other things in place. The fans were surveyed about how could a match day be improved. So yeah, we have to be really grateful that for the time being, and there are still things the club could maybe do a little bit better. There maybe for a different podcast, but yeah, we have to be grateful that at the moment it does feel like our club, and we are part of it, and things are going in the right direction. And that is not the case for Forest. That is not the case for Wolves, who we played at the weekend. You could probably throw West Ham into that, you know?
Yeah.
We used to be the basket case, and now we are the club that other fans are looking at and thinking, hey, I wouldn't mind having a bit of what they've got at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, I think I've got about 10 or 15 questions we didn't answer. The response has been mad this week, so we will try and get to the questions we didn't answer on a different pod this week. But thank you very much to everybody who got involved. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks once again. Thank you, Martin. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, Gav.
Yes, cheers, Andrew. We will speak later in the week, no doubt.
Yeah, cheers. It was good fun today. Lots of positives at the moment.
No need to be negative, is there? And like I said, thank you everyone who sent in the questions. Thank you everyone who has joined us and listened. We've got plenty coming up this week as we build up to that Chelsea game. So if you're not already subscribed to Haway The Podcast, make sure you get yourself subscribed. Head to rotareport.sbnation.com every single morning for your fan-written Sunderland FC content. And of course, we are Rotar Report on every single imaginable social media platform, I think apart from TikTok and that one that Donald Trump runs. So yes, you can catch us pretty much everywhere, but make sure you get subscribed wherever we are. Like I say, we'll be back tomorrow with another pod.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Sports Social Podcast Network, the biggest voices in sport. Let's take a look at some of the lineup, tops and tails.
And he goes, all right, mate, do you want the darts and thing? And I'm like, what darts?
The Anfield Wrap.
Off the field, Liverpool have done everything they possibly could to achieve dominance now.
The Analyst Inside Cricket.
It was announced over the PA system that I was out of the test for injury. A massive cheer went up around the ground. Probably the biggest cheer I've got in the UK.
All on Europe's biggest sport podcast network. Find your next favourite sport podcast. Search Sports Social Podcast Network and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Verified comparison at content.sport-social.co.uk/comparison.